Welcome to the I Get Better podcast with your hosts, Charlene Renee and Phaedra Smith, where we discuss topics related to life, love, mental, physical, and spiritual health, and how we can all get better together. Welcome back to the I Get Better podcast. This is your host, Phaedra.
And I'm Charlene Renee.
Today's topic is I get better at building my legacy. What we're going to do is go ahead and define the word legacy, what it means to us and what it means according to Webster. So I'll read the Webster definition, and then Charlene, I'll let you jump in and you can talk about how you define legacy. So according to the dictionary, an amount of money or property left to someone in a will. It can also be talking about what you leave behind or what a predecessor leaves behind for the people that are coming behind them. It's a gift or a bequest that's handed down, endowed, or conveyed from one person to another. And so today we want to talk about how we interpret that into our lives, how we get that. We just got the knowledge, but how we get that understanding and apply it to our lives. And so one of the things Charlene's going to talk about, but I wanted to briefly bring up, is this idea of, are you leaving behind trash or treasure? And so I think evaluating what you're leaving behind and then making a decision for how you want to continue to walk out that lifestyle or change that lifestyle is going to be important. So Charlene?
Well, I look at legacy as a gift for sure, but it's the gift that keeps on giving, whether good or bad, hopefully good, but essentially it's something that can last from generation to generation. So I see legacy as more than just material goods, but it's the story of your life. It's the things you did. It's the places you went. It's the goals you accomplished, even your failures, but it's what exists of you beyond this physical lifetime. And it's important that you leave a legacy that would make you proud, and that will make your children proud, or will make your grandchildren, or even people that aren't in your family, having this remembrance of you that keeps going when you're long gone from this earth. And so it's important to leave a legacy and know how to build a legacy that will keep going beyond this current generation.
Right. I think it's important to realize that when you're looking at leaving a legacy that you're leaving behind treasures for, I think in the present sense of your life, you have to live this sort of selfless life. So not selfless in saying that you don't do for yourself or take care of yourself, but selfless in saying, what do I want to contribute to the world after I leave? What do I want to continue to contribute to my family? So that's a big thing. Let's look at some barriers to creating the legacy that we want. So one of the things that I personally kind of came up for me was this idea of generational curses. And I think in talking about that, what I really mean is that we continue to repeat the cycles of our previous generations. So of our parents, of our grandparents, of our great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. And we do these things maybe on purpose or not on purpose. Sometimes we do these things knowing that they weren't right, but that's how we were raised. So you hear the term, well, that's how my mama raised me, and I didn't die, and then we also do these other things that we don't know are a cycle. We don't know that our great-great-grandfather had problems with alcohol, or substance abuse, because number one, history wasn't handed down. So I think that this generational curse thing is a barrier. Shame. We talked about shame in our other podcast, shame and guilt, but also this shame of, how do I change, and still belong to my family? How do I change and still belong and not isolate myself so I don't fit in around the friends that I have? And I think that starts with releasing, like we talked about on our other podcast, letting go of some of these expectations that may have been thrust upon you that were based on when you were 5 years old. And so embracing your new moral and values so that you can kind of start to build a legacy that you can be proud of and you can take ownership of.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to look at things and not think that just because they've always been this way doesn't mean that it has to continue to be this way.
Right.
You can be the change. You can be the difference. You can shift the direction of your family legacy starting with yourself and realizing that just because it's a part of your past doesn't mean that it has to continue. You can be the one to change your family's legacy into what it should be or what you think it should be. And so letting go of, keep the history of your family alive for sure, because that is important. Even bad things are important to be discussed and passed on through stories, not through continued behavior. That's an important distinction to make. Just because alcoholism is a part of your past doesn't mean avoid talking about it, but it's important to talk about it so that you can know that we don't have to continue this pattern or this generational curse, as you put it.
I wanted to also kind of briefly bring up this idea of poverty. And I guess that can go into the generational curses also, but it's this lack of education and knowledge, and then also follow through with making changes financially in our culture or in your family and in our society. And so I think that that's a big thing. And I know that that's dear to your heart, Charlene, with what you have going on with Penn Financial. You try to educate people. Won't you tell them a little bit about, maybe kind of go on that topic a little bit?
Yeah, poverty. Let's stick on this for a little bit. So when you read the Webster's definition of legacy, the first thing they say is leaving behind money and property. That's what they talk about, money and property. And so a lot of the times, if you are stuck in this generational curse of poverty, you aren't able to leave behind any money or property. And this is very near and dear to me because I am a financial educator and financial coach. And I really seek to help empower people to learn about how to build their finances, keep their finances in order, and leave behind a legacy or a inheritance to your children. And so that they don't have to be stuck in this curse of poverty, because poverty is such a big issue in not just our culture and community, but worldwide. And it starts with educating yourself and getting the knowledge that you need in order to not continue down this pattern of living in poverty and leaving that to your children. I know in our community, the Black community, it's quite often that we don't get an inheritance, that we don't get any money, that we don't get any property, and that we don't even get the principles left to us that could help lead us to having this great legacy. And it's not all about money. And we're going to talk more about what you can do to build a legacy that's not a tangible material item. But I do want to stay on this topic because it really can impact your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren's future when they don't have this leg up, so to speak, when it relates to being able to build and climb up out of poverty. And your health is impacted by your financial standings. There's so many correlative risk factors to being in financial poverty and having poor health and not being able to do the things that you want to do education wise, not being able to go to college because you can't afford it, not being able to purchase real estate and property because you can't afford it, because you haven't learned how to get these principles to building a legacy, leaving generational wealth, having to fundraise when someone dies because you didn't have life insurance, which is very, very important and a great way to build wealth. Leaving a life insurance policy to your family is a good way to jumpstart that legacy. So I definitely could go on and on, but if you want more information, you can always reach out to me and I would love to be able to help you meet those financial goals.
Can you tell them your website, Charlene?
Oh, sure. It's www.PennFinancialGroup. Penn stands for Power in Numbers, and that's PIN, and it basically is a collective. I want us to be able to grow together financially, working together. 2, 3, 4, 5 heads are better than one. So you can find more information at my website, or just even reach out to me through, our website, Charlene Renee. You can click on and talk more with me and email me. But I want it to be beyond money. when we talk about how to build a legacy.
I want to go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, when I think of remembering people, remembering family members or friends that I've lost, I don't automatically look at how successful were they financially. I look at all the things that they left behind in their presence being missed because their character was so good, or they taught so many people, or just the love that they showed to people. That's where I really find value in leaving a legacy behind, is who you were as a person and what you taught others about life and how to live. That's important when you talk about building your legacy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to go into, is we talk about what you pass on to the next generation. And so asking yourself, what was passed on to me from my family? What emotional traits and characteristics and morals and values are passed on to me? And what do I want to pass on to my children or to the people that are looking up to me and following me? So was anger passed on? Was abuse, physical abuse passed on? Was substance abuse passed on? Was violence passed on? Was not being able to talk to others passed on? And so we looked at all, like you said, these characteristics of this, what made these people up. That's also a part of our legacy. What are you passing on to your future generations, and what do you want to change? What do you want to do different? And this is the thing, guys, we get to change our stories. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but you can change your story. That's the good thing about the brain. That's the good thing about life. That's the good thing about God or spirituality. We all embrace the fact that you can become this new person. And that's one of those things that I think we kind of just can flow into how we get better and how do we build this legacy. And I think one of the things is seeking counsel. Talk to people that are where you want to be, whether that be spiritually, financially, or just emotionally. Talk to people that are in the place where you want to be 5 years from now or a year from now. Seek counsel from people that you could respect and that you really look up to them. So whether that be a therapist, whether that be a financial advisor or someone. But my pastor, my uncle, my old pastor used to say, chickens hang around chickens. But if you want to fly, then you got to hang around the eagles. And so who is in your circle and who is influencing you? Because that says a lot about where you are and why you are going to stay there. And the other thing is learning about your family history, like we already went into. Those who fail to remember the past are doomed to repeat it. And I really believe that's a big thing. You not knowing about your history and the impact, not just your history, not just that your uncle was an alcoholic, but what impact did that alcoholism have on your family and his children and his grandchildren and all of that? What impact did that have? Did that create family secrets? Did that create abuse? Did that create neglect of his family? And so what was the impact of your family history? Do you have anything to add, Charlene, on that one?
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to seek counsel and mentors or people who are striving for the direction that you want to go in, so that you don't have to remain at the level that you're used to or that your parent were used to. And going along with the values portion, not just taking on the values of other people who you admire, but really identifying for yourself, what are your values? What are things that you think are most important to impart to other people before you leave this earth? Because when you are gone, it's difficult to impart anything to anyone because you don't have a voice anymore. So all they'll know is what you gave them. So don't die with all of those gifts and those values and that information within you that would have been important because you think, well, I've got time. You never know how much time you have. And so using the time that you have to the best benefit that you can is important. Also, a segue into another important way to get better is to identify your purpose. And I think we talked about that on another episode about finding your purpose and pursuing your purpose passionately, where you know what you're here to do and then you get to it and you start doing it. And that way you can leave this world fulfilled and know that I've done what and accomplished what I was here to do. And my children know that and they keep it going. they can keep running the race when I'm not there to run the race anymore.
Right. I love that. I think that these are all, I think we could go with most of these conversations, we could keep going on and on and on because they're so rich, but these are also these are conversations that you can continue at home with your family, with your children, by creating these legacy boards or vision boards for your future. You can continue these conversations with your community, your friends, and also your therapist. If you're at a point in your life where you want change and you want to get better in this area, and you have identified that, hey, this is a place that I feel stuck in, I think one of the characteristics of a person that is looking to build a legacy of treasure is that they can seek help and counsel. And so get with someone that can help you through the areas that you're struggling in so that you don't remain stuck. Because like Charlene said, remaining stuck is definitely, it's a component of what you are leaving behind. So if am I leaving behind this anger and this lack of resiliency? And am I leaving behind depression and anxiety because of the fact that I'm stuck? So with that being said, go ahead.
Well, just to piggyback a little bit and this is just another point, I guess, is to take responsibility, because it's not enough to just say, well, it's not my problem because my mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and aunties and uncles didn't do it. So this is just what I get and this is just what I have and it's not my fault. It may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility to make the change for the next generation. Think about your children. Think about, do you want them to continue to have what you currently have? Maybe the answer is yes. And if that's the case, then just keep doing what you're doing. But if the answer is no, I want to leave them better off than I was, then it's important for me to take responsibility and also to not just live for today, but think about the future and make decisions and actions based on that future. So you may have to take some sacrifices. You may have to be selfless. You may have to say, this is not for me, but for them. Because
right.
It will be the things that I spend money on today for myself could have gone to my grandchildren's college fund. At the end of the day, it could have gone to my children's college fund. And so thinking about tomorrow and beyond sometimes has to become more important than thinking about today as it relates to legacy building.
I love that.
I want to, before we wrap up, just kind of touch on my personal experience with this recently, because I've been dealing with the loss of people that I've known who have passed away within the last maybe month and a half. At least three people that I've known personally have passed away from one reason or another. Some even really young and unexpectedly. And when I think about them passing away, and not being very old, not dying of old age, but of sickness or just a sudden death, it just really gets me to thinking about my own life and my own mortality, and knowing that this time we're given is so short in the grand scheme of things. Like, what do I want to do with this time that I have, and how do I want people to remember me beyond I'm gone? So that makes me now adjust the way that I do things, and even loving people more, and even treating people even better and more kind, because I want this outpouring, not just in a selfish way, of good memories of me when I'm gone. I want people to say, man, Charlene was such a great person, not just for the accolades, but for that legacy to be one that I can be proud of.
I love that. I think you created, you started this great conversation that we could probably go into in another podcast, but the fact that you mentioned there's a difference between blame and responsibility. And I think when we can get ourselves out of that victim mentality, that somebody did this to me, and then start to take ownership of our responses to those things and responsibility, I think that's when we can start to kind of crack that exterior barrier that's holding us back from change. So
exactly.
So yeah, that's our time for today, guys. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe. You can find us on all the major streaming platforms.
Right. Look out for the I Get Better podcast. Just type it in, all one word, I Get Better.
Yes. And remember to like and subscribe, but also to email us. Let us know some topics. You can talk to us on our Facebook page or our Instagram page. Let us know or email us. And we have our website, greenhousecounselingfl.com. Let us know what you want to talk about, or let us know if you have other additional comments or concerns you want us to hear about. So until next time, guys, let's keep getting better so we can do better in order to be better.